but I have the capacity to think and reflect, and that's surely something which I should tap into and make the most of.
Yeah, there is some magic to being human.
I totally agree. I think all of the discourse about saying, oh, it sucks to be human, we're just kind of polluters. It's like, sure, we have that, but the very fact that, for example, we even have the ability to be self-reflective is an extraordinary thing. Not all animals can do that. That's not to say we're better per se than them, but I do think there is a kind of luck that we have as human beings that we can make the most of, because that ability to engage in metacognitive thinking, where you can take a step back and reflect, analyze your behavior, plan in advance, have dreams. Like, dreams are an extraordinary thing to have as a human being as well.
Yeah, sometimes bit scary. Sometimes I don't want dreams.
Yeah, when you have good dreams, like, just so the listeners are to clarify for listeners, when you have good dreams, they're truly wonderful in terms of just thinking about how, again, you can connect yourself with nature, with others, that sense of sociality, that sense of community. I would say it is a privilege in ways to be human, and that's why I think, given the discourse that we're talking about, there are kind of certain obligations that naturally come with that. So, the desire to keep the human species going, not just simply as a kind of survival instinct. We're saying, well, we want to be around so we can keep on engaging in mass deforestation. That's not the reason. The reason is more that because we have the ability to creatively tap into our capacities for sense making, which is an immensely progressive thing to have.
For me, it's art. That's what really just... I get overwhelmed sometimes, like our ability to create beautiful things and symmetry and proportion and shapes and colours. Because that's something that's also very unique to human beings. And the creation of art it sort of solidifies us or brings us together. We can all get round and look at a piece of art and it all makes us feel something. And it's something so primordial, something so innate. And it sort of, Roger Scruton says this, it consoles your sorrows and amplifies your joys. And it's, for me, I find it so beautiful because I couldn't live without art, whether that's music or architecture. It's just, it really makes you feel more human. I mean, myself and Alex were by Westminster Abbey and we were just staring, looking at the Gothic architecture, just silent. And it just makes you feel so complete, so grounded, so connected to yourself. And I think that's mad. That is the magic of being a human being, and not many other animals have that. Or I think, what other animal kind of has this idea of beauty or kind of organize their nest in a way that looks nice? That doesn't really matter for them. They have this very basic way of living. It's about eating, sleeping, shitting, fucking, and that is just the beauty of being a human.
But I think the art point doesn't get emphasized enough. So this has been certainly a point that lots of 19th century German philosophers emphasize a lot. So Schopenhauer was a right miserable bastard.
Well, I feel like all philosophers were.
Him particularly. I mean, this guy had really, he's the father of pessimism for a reason.
More than Nietzsche.
Way more. Oh, this is why I was going to talk about Nietzsche in just a second. So Schopenhauer, despite being a miserable bastard, has this amazing moment where he talks about music. And he says that music is this pathway to redemption for him. So, all of life is kind of horrible for him. Just can't wait to commit suicide. But then music comes into the picture. And it's this transformative experience. And given his very serious and welcomely non-orientalizing engagement with Buddhism, it is that kind of pathway to liberation from the samsaric cycle of birth, death, and rebirth and redeath. And I remember always being struck by that. Even though I can't stand most of Schopenhauer's work, I was always struck by that as an undergraduate. I thought, wow, that is really beautiful. And, good on you. Good on you, Arthur, for finding joy in life. But Nietzsche is the most interesting one, I think, because of how he thinks of art as redemptive. And I would say kind of his notion of art extends to visual material and auditory art as well. Because he thinks of art as well as kind of tapping into not just simply our creative capacities, but there's also a kind of erotic content to art where you're at your most alive when you're producing art. You're engaging in experimentation, you're playing with things. There's a kind of enrapturement. And you can kind of see that when you mentioned that when looking at Westminster Abbey, even the kind of Gothic building can inspire that kind of awe. Why were people crying when Notre Dame almost burnt to a crisp? Because there's something shocking about that kind of level of beauty going up in smokes. But then also, if you look at kind of even modern architecture, such as
the Gherkin.
Yeah, the Gherkin. There's also something interesting about the Gherkin, in a way that even if you find it objectionable, it kind of still makes you wonder, about the kind of shape or form. And then you've got even, I would say, pieces like Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water, which is just, for me, I can't get that out of my head sometimes when I think about it. And my partner, who's an architect, she introduced me to his work, and I thought, wow, this guy is, I should have become an architect. Just the idea of building houses into nature as opposed to seeing them as the kind of affront to nature, that kind of organic architecture. It's extraordinary to think about what human beings can do with these forms of artwork. And then you look at something like Van Gogh's brushstrokes, like the intensity of the strokes, there's so much angst and pain and joy also written into it. So I think Nietzsche is absolutely right about art as this redemptive feature, which is a welcome break as well from the kind of disenchantment that we have in nature. That, scientific theory can blow your mind, but it doesn't necessarily feed the soul in the way that artwork does. And as you use Scruton's term, I have a very funny relationship with Roger Scruton.
I can imagine you do.
because on the serious point, that even though some of his stuff on beauty was a bit ridiculous, when he was just pointing to examples of really bad brutalist architecture as examples of the ugliness of modernity, Scruton does have very powerful points about the disenchantment wrought by excessive forms of naturalization, where it removes the kind of joie de vivre of things. What
does that mean?
The sense of that we no longer operate within spontaneities. If everything can be reduced to an algorithm, life loses its fun. If you get an AI to produce an artwork, something's gone horribly wrong in the artistic production process. And I think that kind of spontaneous creativity is also linked to that capacity for reflexivity and for the ability to be critically minded as well.